Origins. Deepwoken Origins have always been a good way to start your progression with an early boost, and for most players, Origins are chosen purely to shape their endgame build with all the bonuses they provide. A lot of people in the community like to talk about the beginning of these Origins or the rewards at the very end, but I think most people can agree that the mid-game, the actual progression gameplay, sometimes just sucks. Of course, that might just be subjective, but for me, the Justicar Origin needs the most help. It has a pretty strong start for veteran players, and there's a solid set of content waiting at the end, so on paper, it seems pretty good. But everything in between is where the Origin completely falls apart, and that's really sad to see. Between Roblox problems, awkward progression, and intentional game design choices that hold the Origin back, Justicar progression kinda just sucks. So the real question is, with everything holding this Origin back, is it even possible to salvage what's already here? What's up guys, it's Punchy, professional Deepwoken Glazer, but today we're looking at the root of the problem with Deepwoken's latest content, the Justicar Origin. Of course, I'm a tester and a longtime player of the game, so my feedback might be a little bit more positive than most, but I'll try to be objective. But trust me, I'm not just hating to hate. This is criticism because I want the game to be better. When Free Week dropped, the community was genuinely excited. The idea of playing alongside freshies and actually being rewarded for helping them sounded like a great direction for the game. But as time went on, the cracks started to show with this Origin. The Justicar Origin has a strong concept and some really solid content attached to it, but actually progressing through it just isn't fun. And honestly, some of those problems aren't even fully Deepwoken's fault. Without further ado, let's break down the issues here and really highlight why the Justicar Origin sucks, but how we can fix it. In the Justicar Origin, the only way we can progress is by helping other players. Castaway Origin players can use the Justicar's whistle to call for help, and Justicars can answer that call to teleport over and assist them through servers. The main issue with this system is pretty simple. Almost nobody in the game actually goes Castaway, which is part of a much larger problem that I'll cover later. But for now, the gameplay loop is basically this. As a Justicar, you're supposed to do everything you possibly can to protect these fresh spawns. You help them survive enemies, defend them from Voidwalker players, and assist them with completing events. If they finish an event, we both get loot and experience, and we also get rank points. That sounds decent as an idea, but it's exactly where the problems start. Progression as a Justicar is 100% reliant on other players. You don't really have any control over your progression, and if nobody calls for help, there's nothing you can do and you can't rank up. If there's no castaways using the whistle, then your only real option is to randomly travel around the world hoping you stumble into castaway players who actually need help. Seriously, sometimes it gets so bad I even ask my friends if I can boost them on a slot. It's really bad. Anyway, because of this, the best way to progress your Justicar rank is usually to tell your fresh spawn or your friend to start doing C events. And honestly, it's terribly balanced. The experience they get from these C events is pretty bad, it's not optimal, but for Justicar players, that almost doesn't matter and we want to be doing this. C events spawn much more often, which means more opportunities for rank points, and that's all we care about. Instead of actually helping Castaway players progress in any meaningful way, we basically end up holding them hostage so we can climb their ranks, which isn't the point of the Origin. Besides that, for most Deepwoken players, I mean the game's 4 years old, repeating the same jobs and events over and over and over gets boring really fast. It's also extremely inefficient for actual progression. I would rather run through every single boss once and get free attribute points than drag a fresh spawn around for a tiny drop of experience. It just doesn't work for anybody. So currently, that's the basic progression loop for Justicar. Remember, if they die at any point in any situation, we lose rank points and leave the server, so they gotta be protected. It's extremely rough for everyone, and somehow the problems only get worse from here. The main reason helping low-level players is so frustrating, especially brand new players, is that communication on Roblox is absolutely terrible right now. And just to be clear, this isn't really a Deepwoken issue. Because of the recent Roblox restrictions, there just isn't a good way to communicate with a lot of players anymore, and it's really bad. Roblox prevents certain accounts from talking to each other, especially if they aren't verified or if they're in different age groups. In an attempt to stop chat abuse, they basically made it so that entire parts of the server just can't communicate. You can even see this on the leaderboard when people don't have chat access, and it's just ridiculous. Without text chat, Justicar players are forced to explain what to do by jumping around awkwardly, spamming vague emotes, or hoping the freshman somehow understands what we're trying to say. Instead of just typing like "do this event," we're supposed to use emotes to say "follow me" or act out what they need to do. Remember, we have to protect these players. Anyway, supposedly there's some sort of rule on Roblox that prevents games from using preset messages or text on board boards or anything like that as a workaround, so as of right now, this is basically what we have. Again, this isn't Deepwoken's fault whatsoever, and I haven't really seen any other Roblox game perfect this sort of communication after the update. But for Justicar progression, it just adds another layer of frustration that makes the entire origin way harder to enjoy for anyone. After discussing why the Justicar gameplay loop kind of just sucks, alongside all the problems with communication, let's talk about one final point that could honestly be fixed pretty easily and might even save the origin. Remember what I said, the only players who can actually call for Justicar help are castaways. This means that Justicar progression is tied directly to the starter origin that almost nobody picks at the end of the day. Just for reference, if you lock into Castaway, you potentially lose access to a lot of other parts of the game, and the main upside you get is being able to summon Justicars for help. And if you ask anybody, this just isn't worth it. It's basically asking players to give up better origin bonuses, better progression routes, and more useful long-term options just so they can occasionally call someone to protect them during their progression. If you actually care about your build, Castaway is almost never worth picking. And because nobody wants to pick Castaway, Justicar players are stuck waiting for calls that barely ever happen. It's insane to me that an origin like Lone Warrior can't summon Justicars even though their entire identity is built around the trial of one and fighting by themselves. Their only real buffs come from being alone, so if a Lone Warrior player chooses to summon the Justicar, they would actively be giving up their Mark of the Lone Warrior buffs for help. And honestly, I think that's a fair trade. You give up some of your origin bonuses to summon the Justicar, and you know everything is fair, right? Personally, I think more origins should be able to use the Justicar whistle somehow, or at least earn them through some sort of progression. There's too many Justicars, but not enough castaways, and when the entire origin depends on castaways calling for help, that means there's barely any missions and no real ways to progress. And this issue is only going to get worse as the game keeps moving forward because the devs are already planning on making more origins. We might eventually see cool reworks to origins like the Ignition Union with the Ceremet dungeon overhaul, or maybe a Hive origin, or even more in the future. And while that sounds pretty sick for the game overall, it creates a huge problem for Justicar. The more interesting options players have to pick from, the fewer people are going to be castaway, and the fewer castaways there are, the slower Justicar missions are going to be. Eventually, that system is just going to die. This is solvable if other origins gain access to the whistle somehow, and this seems required. But as it stands right now, the pool of players Justicars can actually get help from is only going to get smaller and smaller. And without players to help, there is no Justicar origin. That's a design problem. At the end of the day, this really was just the surface of issues for the Justicar origin. There's trolling, ganking, and other weird things that can happen to players that just want to help, but from a design aspect, Deepwoken needs to learn. If this origin is left behind, that's just another piece of wasted content that didn't need to die. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but make sure to leave your thoughts down below. The devs want feedback on stuff like this, so drop your own opinion. Thanks once again to all the supporters who motivate me daily and directly help out the channel because it means a lot. If you want to join as a member for my channel, go down below, but besides that, my personal Discord and my UGC group are linked down below, so check them out. Thanks once again, and make sure to like and subscribe. It's punchin' time.